The wait is over, hockey fans. NHL puck returns, and fantasy hockey season is upon us, which is why you're tapped right back into your daily source for fantasy hockey news, breakdowns, and daily degenerate gambling rundowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And this Monday episode covers everything you know from around the world of the NHL. Let's tap in and let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We might be struggling with the words off the top, but we won't be fumbling the bag on the Monday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, because we got to talk about all of the top news permeating the NHL. Hockey's back, people. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making us your first listen every single day. If you held us down throughout the summer, we're back in full swing, baby. Monday through Friday, this is your source for fantasy hockey news. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Steele, all I got to say is this. I may have been a little bit sloppy jalopy off the top, but we're tightening the screws now, because not only will we be recapping our fantasy drafts this week with our listener leagues, news is back. Injury breakdowns, what's happening on the ice. This is what you and I will do all season long while still bringing waiver wire Mondays, fantasy breakdowns, betting breakdowns. But right now, as we head into this first week, we got the Prague Global Series popping off at the end of the week. Devils, Sabres, over to you. We're talking Laine. We're talking Leafs today. We're talking a little bit of Drew Doughty and the Kings. But we got to start with this Montreal Canadiens team, Lane Hutson. But Patrik Laine, once again, it's not looking good, is it? I don't want to speculate, but over to you. What are you seeing? What are you thinking?
Look, that I was absolutely sick to my stomach when I heard the news and saw the video. It was a disgusting injury, and I tweeted it right away that this player cannot catch a break in his NHL career. I mean, every single season, it seems like something happens to this player, whether it's fluky or it's a serious injury like this. Need a knee in a situation in a preseason game. I mean, come on right now. I feel terrible for Patrik Laine. I mean, he does not deserve this. This was supposed to be one of the superstar type of caliber players in the National Hockey League for over decades. Patrik Laine, 40-plus goal scorer. He was supposed to be one of the top-tier players, and just, besides the first two seasons of his NHL career, has not been able to get things going on a consistent basis, hasn't been able to stay healthy physically and mentally. And that was just a terrible, terrible injury to have, especially in the preseason. I mean, it's really tough when it comes to knee-on-knee situations, because I understand on the opposition side, you're going to lay the hit. You're going for the physicality in the game. And then, that player, just in this sense, the player who has the puck tries to get out of the way, steps out of the way, and there's a knee-on-knee collision. Sometimes they purposely stick the leg out. Sometimes it's just that player moving to the right, trying to maneuver his way around the defender. And in this situation, I think that's what it was. Obviously, a terrible, terrible scenario for Patrik Laine and for Cedric Perret, who was the one who had the knee-on-knee collision with Laine. But it was gruesome. It looked really, really bad. And you and I talked about this right after. His NHL career is coming. There's a question mark on his career, on his future in the National Hockey League. So for me, I'm sick to my stomach, because I talked a lot about Patrik Laine and my expectations and how excited I was for him to be in Montreal and be in the top six group with Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Juraj Slafkovsky, and kind of get this fresh start with the new organization. And I just feel terrible for Laine, because he does not deserve this whatsoever.
More specifically, the intrigue for sure was him on that second line with Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook. And I alluded to you, very directly off air, that, everyone knows on this show that we're Toronto Maple Leafs fans, but this is one of those scenarios that it's hard for me to watch, even if he is in one of those jerseys that I really kind of love to hate, if you will. And Patrik Laine, number one, this was a potential big ad for this Montreal Canadiens team. Does it come with risk? We just did high risk, high reward. Patrik Laine could have been on that list, most definitely, because also, like, I'm here for what you said 100%. Consistency-wise and injury-wise, it's been very hard for him to be in the lineup, but just in his time in Columbus over the past, like the previous 2 seasons, not last year, 56 points in 56 games and 52 points in 55 games. Yeah, he's been fantasy disappointing. But in terms of what this could have meant for this Montreal Canadiens club, that could have been huge for them this season. And look, we don't know yet. Maybe he comes back. It looks gnarly. And we had to talk about it because also, Steele, and I wanted to hit you with this, a lot of drafts have gone down already. And Patrik Laine was becoming one of those very sexy, maybe your last couple of forward ads, maybe you take a risk on him for some offensive bump type of player. And if you did take him, now all of a sudden you already have to juggle things for your lineup. So not only does that have an impact on the Canadiens, it has an impact on fantasy GM. So we got to talk about it, and that's what we're going to continue to do on this show, Monday through Friday. Break it all down for y'all in 30 minutes to make sure you have all of the news that you need to dominate your drafts, including Steele. We talked about this Canadiens prospect pool as being one of the best and one of the deepest in the league. There are a lot of very intriguing names here. The one we want to focus on for a second is Lane Hutson. So we're going to give the Montreal Canadiens fans a little bit of a reprieve here and go to the positives for a sec, because that just straight up sucks. And we're not going to come on here and hate at any capacity. Hats off to the Patrik Laine camp. I hope it works out. However, Lane Hutson, looking like it's going to work out in a big way, Steele. Hit me with your take on this player very quickly. The man's jacked below the waist. He's got these beast mode calves. I don't know if you saw that photo. The quads are just bubbling, but he can bring it, and he's already electrifying the Bell Center crowd. You know how I feel about that fan base. Over to you, though, because Lane Hutson, he's starting to become a little intriguing bit of a fantasy asset, especially in keeper dynasty side of things.
Yes, he is, and he's looked really good in preseason. He's looked really good in training camp. I believe he has 2 points in 3 preseason games, and he just looks so confident and poised when he has the puck on his stick. He's making great plays in the defensive zone, breaking out to his wingers and his centermen, and again, just looks very good and comfortable back there at such a young age. And, you know, I'm still not 100% sold on him coming in and taking over the first power play unit over Mike Matheson, but he's definitely sniffing at the rear end right now, if you know what I mean, because he's right there on Mike Matheson's butt right now. So the power play 1 unit for me, it's still going to Mike Matheson, but that might hurt his fantasy value in the season if Lane Hutson can somehow get on that power play unit, somehow get some more average time on ice. Again, he's 18 years old, 19 years old, and Mike Matheson is just getting into his prime. He had a great season last year with the Canadiens, but for me, he's right there. And so, I'm a little nervous with Lane Hutson right there. Like I said, sniffing at Mike Matheson's power play time. But for me, I'm not 100% sold he's going to get it, but he looks good, and it looks like he could be on the starting roster.
He's generating a lot of buzz. And when a player at this age, and, you saw, I love that you brought up the word comfort. He looked comfortable for a player who's 20 years old with 2 games played in the NHL, and you're going to come in and look that comfortable. You got to pay attention. This is also, as much as I know, a second-round draft pick, 62nd overall, back end of the second round. I understand that he didn't jump off the page initially. Boston University is turning out a lot of good young players. Cough, cough, Macklin Celebrini. I'm not going to try and compare the two. That's crazy. But Lane Hutson is somebody you got to pay attention to in the fantasy game, because this is a team in the Montreal Canadiens that I think a young defenseman gets the best opportunity possible. A blue line very much in flux, if you know what I'm saying. He is going to get all the opportunity to establish himself on that blue line. Is it going to happen right away, Steele? Maybe not. I'm with you. I'm not ready to fully read into that because it is preseason hockey. But when you're looking that good and that comfortable and you're electrifying crowds in the manner that he was, very good skater, looking like a high IQ type player, we got to get you on it early and often, my friend, so that you can be one up on the competition in your fantasy leagues. Much like the rest of today's topics, we got to take a look at this Toronto Maple Leafs team, Steele. A little bit of a Canadian special to kick off this one. couple of injuries, couple of roster potentials. We'll take a look at it after the break, along with Drew Doughty's injury and the LA Kings. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. No matter what kind of live event, you know you can be tapping into Game Time. Comedy, theater, sports, music. Game Time is your go-to. Make sure you're hitting up the 50% off Labor Day offer for any kind of Diamondbacks or Dodgers. If you're in that area, they're going to be popping off. Make sure you download the Game Time app today. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip and I appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find all of our episodes. Once again, thank you so much for all the love you showed us throughout the offseason, throughout the fall, leading up to the drafts this upcoming weekend. We hope everyone's enjoying their fantasy drafts and really excited about their fantasy leagues this upcoming season. We're excited for the puck to drop later this week in that global series between the New Jersey Devils and the Buffalo Sabres. We've been itching for some hockey to return back to our lives. Flip, Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, back-to-back header over the weekend. Couple of injuries. We just finished up talking about Patrik Laine and the scary knee-on-knee situation with him. Yeah. William Nylander, John Tavares, Austin Matthews, all injured as well. I'm going to throw it over to you and see where you want to lead it off or start with. Obviously, the big situation probably with William Nylander, but I'll throw it over to you. Where would you like to start?
Well, look, Steele, say what you will about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Fantasy-wise, we got to continue to pay attention to this team. You and I will do our breakdowns each division. We'll rank them 8 through 1. We'll get to that conversation. That doesn't need to be hashed out today. When you look at this Leafs team, though, we have to continue to pay close attention. When you have Willie, you got Mitch, you got Austin Matthews. Those are 3 guys in the top 25 in fantasy forwards. So we're going to talk about this team a lot. And when a guy like William Nylander not only got, those head issues last year, migraines, whatever that was in the postseason, that's one thing. But when he was in there, Steele, he was a game-changing forward who you can't help but feel is one of those best pure shooters in the league. So when he gets knocked in the head and leaves the game, and I'm all here for Craig Berube coming out, he's going to be totally fine. He's fine, all good. You got to be paying attention to this situation. And if you haven't drafted yet, and I'm not saying you stay away from Willie because of this, you got to be armed with this information going in, because I've just rewatched that play a whole bunch. He gets whacked in the head, and he's been whacked in the head a whole bunch. Then you factor in the headaches. I got to say, I'll start with Willie. Coming into this year, he's got 100 points written all over him. That's how good he is. And I'd be fine if he falls into the 85 realm or 90, but he is more than good enough for triple digits. So fantasy investment is going to be there. I just don't know, my friend. And they're saying he's fine. I'm just worried. I guess what I'm trying to spit out here is I'm worried. It's early. Let's see what happens.
Look, that was just an idiotic play from Nicholas Robertson. I mean, this guy must be really dying to make a roster spot at the end of the day if he's trying to get rid of William Nylander on the roster. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You're in a preseason game. You're not even hustling yourself, and you're going to try to push your teammate back. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it was friendly fire, self-sabotage for the Maple Leafs right there. But look, it kind of worked out for him. Nick Robertson has had 3 goals in the last 2 games. He's been scoring at will right now.
Yeah, that's weird.
Pun not intended.
Whoa, holy, you're on fire over there, pal.
I'm on fire today. This is incredible.
Geez. Yeah,
this is new to me. I'm not usually quick off the cuff like this. But no, I mean, it was definitely an idiotic play. It doesn't make any sense. Again, this is preseason we're talking about. Why are you trying to push one of your superstar players back into the rush or back into the defensive zone when you yourself are not even skating fast and you're being lazy and you're not trying to get back? And again, idiotic. But Robertson, he's fighting for a roster spot. He's fighting for a top 6 spot, I guess, now. And look, he's done well in the preseason for the most part, but it was an idiotic play. Hopefully, like you said, it's not anything serious, and William Nylander's completely fine, and this does not hurt his fantasy value, because I agree. He has triple digits written all over him this season. This is a very strong offensive group, and it's led by a new coach, Craig Berube, who's going to put the work in, and he's going to get them going at the start of the season.
We'll keep you updated on these situations. Obviously, Austin Matthews was dealing with an upper body ailment as well. The teams are going to play this very close to the chest to start the season, just like they always do in the NHL now. Nicholas Robertson, just to round out this segment, we'll get to Drew Doughty afterwards. And don't forget, Monday, waiver wire specials. We'll be here all season long for your waiver wire moves, all season long for all of your betting needs. However, Nicholas Robertson last year, Steele, let me just talk about him for a hot second. 14 goals in 56 games. That was a bonehead move. And I think I saw something about Willie actually came out and commented on it. Not ripping his teammate, but saying, I don't know what he was doing there, and I don't know what he was doing either. However, 14 goals in 56 games. If you want to just kind of, for a second, extrapolate on that and give the kid 82 games in the NHL, let's say he gets 25 goals. This is now relevant. If you have a guy on your third line, Steele, with offensive upside who can pop 25, they really do need to give Nicholas Robertson a true look. 53rd overall pick in the second round. Obviously not super fantasy relevant here, and I do want to get to Drew Doughty. I just wanted to finish this point on Nicholas Robertson. If he does actually start to do what he's been doing in the preseason and the regular season, he might be one of those first sneaky, and this is why I teed it up, waiver wire Monday ads, who if he starts to get some power play time or he works his way up into that top six, there is nothing solidifying Matthew Knies as that top line left winger. Nothing. And with Berube in there, he is going to give whoever a look that is producing. So don't sleep on Nicholas Robertson. Don't sleep on any of these angles right now, Steele. It's go time for fantasy hockey GMs, and you can't afford to take your finger off the pulse for 1 second. That's why you're tapped into this pod. That's my take on Jason Robertson. I don't know how you feel about that. Hit me
Nick
with
Robertson. Nick Robertson.
What did I say?
You said Jason Robertson.
Definitely Nick Robertson. I hope that was the only time I said that, but thank you very much.
And also don't forget about Max Pacioretty. He could also sneak his way into that top six forward group as well. A lot of things going on for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're excited for the season to start. That's all we got to say. We're going to come back and talk about Drew Doughty and the injury to him and talk about a little bit about the LA Kings as well. But first, this episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place all your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. We got to show some love to the LA Kings and talk a little bit about Drew Doughty as well. He is out month to month with an ankle injury. He will have ankle surgery, or he will have surgery on his ankle. But he is out month to month. This is tragic news for the LA Kings. It's tragic news for anyone who drafted him already. And, we'll be excited for when he gets back into the NHL this upcoming season, but we're not going to see him at least until December. So, sticky situation, scary situation for Drew Doughty. I mean, again, talk about preseason. Maybe it's time for the NHL. I've been seeing this on Twitter and just be rumored around, but maybe it's time for the NHL to implement something the NFL did as well and shorten down the preseason games, because this is getting out of hand without, some of these injuries to high-end superstars and just, the players in general. Over 5+ preseason games doesn't make any sense to me. So it might be time to shorten that down a little bit. But Drew Doughty, he's out month to month Flip, over to you, my friend. What do you want to
Yes, sir.
discuss?
I think they actually have shortened it previously. I think there was even
They got to
more
do it
preseason
again.
games. I don't disagree fully. I'm just trying to, piece this all together here. Let me piece it together a little bit like this. Drew Doughty had 109 hits last year, 142 block shots, 44 penalty minutes, 135 shots on net, and 50 points. This guy was a plus 15, the highest plus minus he's had since 2018. He can clearly still bring it, and he is very important to the success of this LA Kings team. So just to sidebar quick, it's a hit to the LA Kings, and it sucks if you drafted this player. That's an awkward play. He goes down. It almost looks like I think he tripped and fell. He's month to month, no definitive timeline. I guess, the obvious angle here is I'm concerned about the blue line in LA when already that's a blue line with Gavrikov, Mikey Anderson, Joel Edmondson, Kyle Burrows, someone named Jordan Spence. But I'm looking at Brant Clark, and I've been reading into this player, and it jokes that I just butchered his name. He's a right shot defenseman. He's a right shot defenseman, Steele. That's a good Barry Colton, was drafted 8th overall. And looking into his numbers in junior, he brought it in a very big way offensively. 61 points in in 31 games in his last year in the OHL. And how about last year in the AHL for the Ontario Reign? 46 points in 50 games. This guy is ready to go, and I see an opportunity here for somebody to take the reins on that blue line. It's not going to be Joel Edmondson. No offense to Kyle Burrows and Mikey Anderson. It's not them either. Brant Clark has a big opportunity here. And I understand the obvious nature is to look to Drew Doughty and his loss in fantasy. I'm looking to Brant Clark in a very big way here, Steele. I don't know how I feel about necessarily saying now you go out and draft this guy. But again, to tie back to Waiver Wire Monday, I got my eyes double peeled on Brant Clark because just at the very least, he is going to eat a ton of minutes as a top 10 pick who has put up good numbers in junior. All of those things making me very intrigued to go after a sneaky good player who's not getting enough attention right now.
100%. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for any of these guys to jump up there and be the quarterbacking defenseman on the power play, eat those heavy minutes. Obviously, I think Gavrikov, when it comes to Joel Edmondson, the veteran experience that they bring to the table to kind of lead these young guys and fill that position for Drew Doughty, that's going to make the most sense. But when it comes to that first power play unit, we're going to see Brant Clark. We're going to see Jordan Spence. It's going to be one of those two guys going up there first, getting a lot of time there and seeing which one, produces the most amount or, does the most with that opportunity. I think you're right. It's going to be Brant Clark to start with, but I could definitely see Jordan Spence getting in the mix as well on that first power play unit. And again, just kind of giving them some time and some space to figure things out right now through the other leadership veterans on the team. But yeah, Brant Clark, 25 games played in the National Hockey League so far in his career, 8 points, 42 shots. He's only averaged under 14 minutes of average ice time in those limited amount of games. So he's going to go from under 14 to probably close to 20 in the span of a season. So that's big news for him. And like you said, Waiver Wire Mondays, keep your eyes peeled for this player, because if he comes out hot for the LA Kings to begin the season, he's going to continue to go with it and take the reins for them. So for me, I agree with you with Brant Clark. It's probably going to be him, but I could see a mixture of both those guys. I do want to mention this real quick before, unless you have anything else to talk about with the LA Kings.
Not really, other than Darcy Kemper and David Riddick also are not instilling a whole ton of confidence in me. So I don't know what's going to go down in LA this year, but hit me with what you're thinking and let's wrap this bad boy up.
I think I have a little bit more confidence in Darcy Kemper. Again, it's a little, new change of scenery for him going from Washington to LA. And I do think he can bring it to what we saw back with the Colorado Avalanche, or even back earlier in his NHL career. But I'm a little bit more confident in Darcy Kemper. I do just want to mention this because it involves a goaltender, an injury. John Gibson will be out 3 to 6 weeks after having emergency appendectomy surgery as well. Lucas Dostal will be taking the reins at the beginning of the season. So that's good news for you. That is good news for you after that trade we were just talking about.
Maybe we save that for another episode, Steele. I don't think I'm emotionally ready to get into that.
We'll save that for another episode, but it's good news for you for sure. But not good news for John Gibson because he'll be out 3 to 6 weeks. Again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Make sure your second listen, though, is the Locked On NHL Podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link in the description below, so you don't have to search for it. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your drafts this weekend, this upcoming week as well. We wish you good luck with all your bets, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.